Previously, some of the others in the fleet came running over in the aftermath of the group's fight with the assassins. The group explained that the assassins had clearly been trying to kill one of them, but they didn't know any details at that time. Then they dragged the one surviving but unconscious assassin back to the boat, where Sean was sitting on the deck, unable to stand up from the poison they'd hit her with. Taria was also affected by said poison, but she was able to fly, which helped with the whole situation where her legs didn't work. She quickly bowed out to sleep it off and avoid any, interrogations that were clearly going to happen. Keelan and Sava went diving into the water to find the coins that Oz had thrown overboard, and when they were handed to Sean, she didn't look very surprised to see them. She gave the group a little information about the Assassin's Guild known as the Twin Silvers, with an emphasis on the fact that once they had a target, they didn't stop until that person was dead. Oz searched the assassin for any hidden surprises, removing a number of weapons from him before Sean healed him just enough to bring him back to consciousness. Tornak and Zaya both read his mind at different points in the conversation. While the assassin didn't know who it was that had put the contract on Sean in the first place, they were able to tell from his mind that it had happened 5 days before, which helped narrow things down somewhat at least. The assassin offered Sean a bargain, which was common if a target was powerful or lucky enough to not be killed outright on the first assassination attempt by the Twin Silvers. If she let him go, she'd have 7 days before they tried again. And a lot could happen in 7 days. Potentially, if she could figure out who put the contract on her in the first place, she could try to convince them to withdraw it. Also, if she didn't take the bargain, they'd kill someone she cared about, which made it a fairly easy choice for Sean. She told the group to let him go, and he walked away. Then she went to join Taria below decks and try to sleep off the poison that was making her legs work less than expected. Keelan asked for some help with his alchemy, and he drafted a few of the others into assisting him at various points throughout the night as he experimented. The next morning, Oz made breakfast for everyone, and for the first time in a while, Zaya helped him. It turned out very well, and everyone felt a bit more lucky in the aftermath. Taria did some magic-related things with her journal before Keelan pulled her aside to show that he'd figured out how to identify items. They quickly took a look at the scythe they'd taken from Drusilla, which was clearly evil and probably cursed, but oh, so potentially useful. Taria immediately wanted to learn how to cast the Identify spell too, but she quickly realized she would have to study Keelan casting it for a week or so before she'd be able to pick it up. Eventually, Keelan went to trance since he'd stayed up most of the night while the others rested, since he needed less time to properly recover. Zaya pulled Sean aside for a quiet talk about the assassination attempt and her family. Then, eventually, they heard the sound of battle ahead of them. The fleet the group was leading started to split, with the two parts of it going in different directions to join in the fight. The group quickly made some plans on how to handle their part. As the Serendipity joined the fight, the first ship directly ahead of them was that of the Praetors. There was a red cloak at the wheel. Sean immediately cast Control Water, making a whirlpool appear directly under the Praetor ship, and the fight started. Keelan wasn't able to get the ship turned properly, and it took several hard-hitting cannonball strikes that quickly had Serendipity starting to go down as the front of the ship was pretty much knocked completely off. Sean switched her Control Water to redirecting the flow to help keep the ship afloat longer. Tornak was thrown from the ship when it was hit, and he brought Karma out of its bottle. Zaya grabbed the Dark Tear from the Serendipity before rushing to the Karma herself. Another striking blow hit the back of the Serendipity, all but destroying it. Everyone still on it was thrown into the water. They managed to blast the Praetor ship as they went down, though, sinking it as well. Everyone was able to make it back to the Karma, and the Praetor swam in the opposite direction. The blockade had clearly been broken as the remains of the Empire's fleet was fleeing, half of its ships sunk. Sean set up several other whirlpools to catch other ships as they fled, spinning them slightly and slowing them down enough for other ships to shoot at them. Various supplies were pulled from the water as crates and other items from the sunken ships were floating in the sea. Then the celebration started on the ships. And that is where we left off.